All participants are muted.
Ahura, everybody. My name is Gazi Kodzo. I'm the Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party, and I want to welcome everyone to the African People's Socialist Party monthly international meeting. Ahura! This is March's meeting. We have, just for a reminder for everybody, we have these meetings once a month on the second Saturday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is, you should have this on your schedule. Make sure to call out on work or school or whatever you need to make sure to be at these mandatory meetings. My office does send out emails, phone calls, and texts to remind everybody, but everybody should have this already sketched out in your planner and stuff like that. And if you are watching from online, please make sure to check in by commenting with your name and your location. And Aniko is the admin on there right now, so make sure to check in with your name and your location. And we will have a Q&A section at the end, and we will be calling for questions. So please make sure to have your notepads and pens with you and to ask questions. Or if you need things to be deepened for you, please make sure to write them down. We will be giving the instructions of how to ask those questions. If you're watching online and you have a question, you can type it out and send it. But remember, before you ask your question, to state your name, where you're from, where you're located. We're from Africa. Where you're located and what work you are in. So for instance, if you are President Kalimbayi Andanette, you'd say, my name is Kalimbayi Andanette. I'm in St. Louis, Ferguson, and I am the president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, and I have this question. Boom. All right, so now it is my honor to introduce our chairman, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African nation.
Hello, comrades. I'm glad to be here with everybody on today. What I'd like to do is something that had not been anticipated and really is not on the agenda. And I'm trying to do it within the time frame that has been allocated for the meeting and for my participation here. But recently and up until today, there's been a lot of discussion happening, a lot in the media about Korea and the Trump administration or Trump himself possibly meeting or supposedly meeting with Kim Jong-un, who is the leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, commonly referred to in this country as North Korea. I want to do this because I think that one of the things that we have to constantly remind ourselves is that that we are different, and that our political work is motivated by a deeper, more profound understanding of the nature of the contradiction that we are confronted with as a people and that the world is confronted with. When the ruling class, media, report on issues like what's happening with Trump and North Korea, when they report on North Korea and various things around the world, it's not innocent. The fact is that these are discussions that are happening that's designed to shape opinions. And they are to shape opinions, and when they can, to try and justify what the leaders of this country may be doing. And as a revolutionary organization with the intent to govern, with the intent to make ever deeper struggles with the social system that oppresses us all as a people, it's critical that we understand what it is that we're dealing with. This is not just something for professors and big shots, but all of our forces, people who have the responsibility of selling the burning spear in the community, who are going to be talking with people. Ordinary people are often concerned about what they are hearing, the possibility of nuclear war and Trump going to Korea and what all of this means. So all of us need to be extremely informed, and more going into our seventh Congress, what we're going to see is that all of us will have greater leadership responsibilities throughout the structures of the African People's Socialist Party. So I wanted to say something about this situation in Korea, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, communication, disinformation, and what have you surrounding that. And to start off, I think that what's really important for us as a party, as African internationalists, it is important for us to understand that that something about this, the fabric of the social system that we live and work and struggle in. Recently, I have been writing a lot about how with the advent, with the consequence of slavery and colonialism, what used to be a number of different countries, societies, having just a casual relationship to each other, what used to be these diverse kinds of social organizations in the form of states and separate economies. With the advent of slavery and colonialism, the whole world economy now came into existence as a single world economy. And this was a capitalist economy. And this was an economy, as I said, it got started with slavery. And it got started with colonialism. And that's important for us to understand, because some people in the United States, for example, think of this thing that's referred to as slavery as something just peculiar to Black people in the United States. And we can't come up with good solutions because we see it as a problem that somehow Africans or Black people in the United States has dropped in from outer space off of a intergalactical slave ship that didn't really come from anywhere. And now we have this particular problem just as Black people in this country. When in fact, slavery was an attack on Africa, the entire continent of Africa. And what happened with that changed the whole world's economy. And off of that, the whole world is now linked into a single economy, a world economy that's known as a capitalist economy. And part of what should be understood by that is that this point, when we have a world economy, the dominant forces, which are white imperialist forces, which is England, the United States, and all these other forces, they are the forces that integrate the rest of us as subsidiaries or something to that effect to this economy. All we exist as people and forces that contribute to the well-being to this dominant social system that feeds white people and the whole white world. Anything that disrupts that is problematic. That's why, revolutionary struggles and what have you, problematic. So that's the world that we live in. It's really important for us to understand that. And this world is not something that people have easily adopted to and accepted. I mean, nobody wants to be a slave, even if we don't know the word slavery. Nobody wants to be colonized, even if we don't know the word colonized, because things come with that. Starvation, poverty, brutality, ignorance that's imposed on us, violence, all of this comes with that. Nobody wants to live like that. So we may not know the name of what it is, but we just don't want to have that kind of life for ourselves. And sometimes we internalize that and take it out on ourselves and take it out on other people and blame ourselves too, because it's easier to blame yourself rather than going up against this horrible force, that can bring murder, wreak havoc, kill your family, destroy you at will. And so we say, well, we brought it on ourselves because I don't want to mess with this guy. But what has happened is, every so often you see these outbreaks. People are struggling, trying to end their relationship to this kind of system. But when they try to end their relationship to the system, it means that the whole white world moves in a certain way. And certainly the leadership of that world has to move in a certain way in order to protect the system itself. The system now requires this slavery, this host and parasitic relationship. And in Korea, one of the most disturbing things recently, in recent history, for this order, this capitalist order that I'm talking about. By the way, the greatest really disruptor of the capitalist order was Haiti. Africans really attacked the entire system, the whole world economy, because it was organized around slavery. And that's why what happened with tiny Haiti had such a big impact that all the European powers, including the United States, did horrible things and continue to do horrible things to Haiti up to this day. And so off and on, you've seen this kind of thing trying to happen. And then in 1917, in Russia, in particular, I'm not trying to tell all this history, but in Russia in 1917, this revolution happened that was led by people who call themselves communists or socialists. And their assumption was that the working people who produce value, when they say working people, they meant white people who produce value, the people who actually should control society. And they want to make a revolution to get rid of a system that a handful of people who are rich, the corporations and the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, would be living off the expense of the workers who produce all the values in theory. And so they made this revolution in Russia. And then the assumption was that this revolution would be happening all over. And there were attempts to make revolution after Russia, Germany, Hungary, and all other kinds of, and different places like that throughout the world. And this came to be like the communist problem. Problem is communism. And I'm saying this because the people who led this, they call themselves communists and socialists. But the real problem is that these were people who were disrupting this integrated system that required the ruling class, a handful of corporations and white people and whole countries now. These were forces who were trying to bust up this integration that would have undermined the whole social system, the whole setup. And so the communist threat became the horrible threat. The whole system of every power that they had, military, economic, ideological, psychological, everything they had went to create this boogeyman of this communist, that's coming, because it was an existential threat to the capitalist class. And so we had that in 1917. And the fear, of course, that this revolution could happen every place else. 1949, of course, we saw the Chinese Revolution happen, and that's important around the Korea question. And the Chinese Revolution was important, period, for people who were not white, because the Chinese Revolution, showed that people who are not white can run our own countries, our own governments in a period where white power seems to dominate the whole world. And then the Chinese also promoted communism, socialism, et cetera, and that was a problem. And this was 1949. Now, the Korean War, what they call the Korean War, started in 1952, if I'm not mistaken. But what had happened was the people of Korea were colonized too. And one of the leader of the Korean Revolution, his name was Kim Il-sung. And he lived at the time in the Soviet Union. And he was trained there. He came out of the Soviet Union. He led this incredible, heroic revolutionary movement to liberate the total Korea. And when that happened, the United States government got involved and they attacked Korea. They attacked the people who were fighting against colonialism. They attacked the people who were fighting to free Korea. And because from them, this whole domino theory, if it happens here, communism is going to happen here, it's going to happen here, so you got to stop it. And so the US government attacked Korea. And this is what people call the Korean War. And when they attacked Korea, the Korean forces fought an incredibly courageous struggle against them. And part of the intention of the United States government was to go through Korea and go into China, which was the communist country. And this is Douglas MacArthur, the great American hero, for which boulevards are named in San Francisco, in Northern California, what have you. So here you got streets, the Hoover House in Oakland is on MacArthur Boulevard. It's named for Douglas MacArthur. So Douglas MacArthur, he was planning to go into Korea, go through Korea and attack China. And you need to understand this also, because all of the noise they make around Korea, part of it is China, because China continues to be this big economic, even though it doesn't call it calls itself a communist party, but it's a big economic contender and increasingly militarily. So here you have that happening, and China, the Chinese come across the border. There was even the serious thing they did in Korea, that the generals, the American generals, were complaining that there was nothing left for them to bomb. They had bombed, they had literally destroyed all the structures in what now are called North Korea. They literally bombed them out of existence. And so, and they had talked about using nuclear weapons, you know, in China. And then the Chinese also came across that border. And if you meet any person, any of your cousins or your granddad or something who fought in Korea, they still got the shakes. Because the Chinese came across the border, and along with the Korean Revolutionary Forces, they pushed the Americans back. And they held the line at what is now what they call the 38th parallel. And this is, and so a truce, an armistice was created. So the Korean War, that first of all, the United States didn't even want, they didn't call it a war, call it police action. We'll do this a couple of weeks, it's gonna be over. And it wasn't like that at all. So the comrades, you know, stopped them. So they had this armistice at the 38th parallel. And the United States occupied that part of Korea, and the Koreans occupied the other part. And that's how you get North and South Korea. It's not like there are two different people. There's just one Korean people. And the people still experience the consequences of having been separated. People, it's a really critical thing for the Korean people, this whole separation from each other. And I've seen, and you may have seen some videos or newscasts when they allow people to come across and meet each other. You see these old people and other people, they're so happy to be reunited. The people want to be reunited. But the problem is that the United States government had a policy that did not recognize the existence of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It would not recognize that Korea. It was going to isolate it, and if they could, get rid of it. And so they have at least 30,000. They say 30,000. I believe it must be 50, 100,000 U.S. troops that are there. And then they have always had these military exercises. Thousands of troops, all kinds of hardware, military, ships, airplanes, you know, et cetera, that practicing where the Korean people can see it, invading Korea. Then they say that the Korean people, the leaders in what they call North Korea, respond, they're crazy. You know, they are these irrational people, et cetera. You know, they won't act right. And the United States government has never, for 70 years, the United States government has never met, because to meet with them in their perspective is to validate their existence. You with me?
Yeah, yeah.
And so this has been like a contradiction. And but it's been a problem because the Koreans under Kim Il-sung, who was the leader that led that revolutionary struggle, they created a philosophy they called it juche. And it meant that it was like anti-flunkyism. We ain't gonna be nobody's flunky. That was the thing. We ain't gonna be flunky for China. We ain't nobody gonna do that. And so they wouldn't kowtow to anybody. Then at the same time, what the United States government did, in order to show the superiority of capitalism over communism, the superiority of corporations and the bourgeoisie running the country as opposed to the people running their own country, they heaped all kinds of monies and resources in what they call South Korea. They built it up. They put all kinds of things. So South Korea seems to be economically powerful, but it's connected to the whole capitalist system internationally, and they isolate North Korea, right? Say the North Koreans, the people are starving and it's hungry. If they're starving, they starve for the same reason we're starving in Haiti, because they isolate and they have this economic quarantine and what have you on it. Although it's not like they say it is in Korea. And so, so you should understand that. So what has happened is that with the young leader of Korea, Kim Jong-un, and by the way, the name is Kim. In Korea, the last name, what you will call the last name, they have first, you know, so like all of them are Kims. So Kim Il-sung, Kim, you know, et cetera, right? You know, so the young Kim, when he comes to power, he's rapidly escalating the ability to produce a nuclear deterrent force, because the United States government is constantly doing these war games, and they've also identified the Democratic People's Republic of Korea as what do they call it, axis of evil that they intended to destroy. And so and so it's been really interesting to watch Kim Jong-un, who's been rapidly developing a nuclear capacity and shooting up rockets and everything. And the United States government has tried to prevent that. They have actually used viruses and introduced viruses into their computer systems to try to, so, you know, you would see that they would try to send up a rocket and they would fail. And they did the same thing with the Iranians for a while. Yeah. And so, but nevertheless, the Koreans actually developed a capacity much quicker than they thought they would, because the Americans, you know, they think, can nobody do stuff but white people? Yeah. So this, you know, quickly, you know, it's going to take them years and years and years. And Kim, shoo, you know, got rockets going up overnight. Yeah. So now that Kim has demonstrated clearly before the whole world that we have a capacity to drop a nuclear weapon in Tampa, right? Yeah. And at this point, he said, we can talk. Yeah. And by the same token, you got Trump and this administration talking all this war stuff. We'll eliminate Korea off the planet Earth. Well, if you eliminate the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, you're going to eliminate all the Koreans. You're going to eliminate a whole bunch of people in that region. So what happens is, with this Olympic thing happen, the South Korean, the puppet regime, say, why don't the North come and join us in this thing? Because they want to kick off some way to keep from, you know, to negotiate this thing out of that. This kicks off a process. Yeah. U.S. was surprised by it. You would see these complaints that they didn't tell us anything. We didn't know anything about that. They were going to make this thing. Right. And then recently, as you know, they went together, and people told me that in this Olympics that they saw videos and stuff, or they saw newscasts, and when because Kim Jong-un, his sister, the young sister came, and he sent his sister, and that was something that they thought was incredible too. It was a great propaganda thing. This young erudite fashionable woman shows up, and they got the Korean regime is this irrational boogeyman and stuff, and she shows up, and Pence shows up too, the vice president, and nobody pays any attention to Pence, and everybody's and I'm told that in newscasts that people actually saw when this woman was sitting there, people actually saw the Korean people in the audience were crying. They were so ecstatic about this whole possibility of unity. So that was part of what happened. And when now that they have the capacity to defend themselves, then the Koreans can say, we can sit down and talk and actually try to initiate a discussion, because they don't want to spend all their money and all their resources, you know, building nuclear stuff as well. Yeah. And it did it in a fashion that it surprised all of them, surprised the Trump regime, surprised the bourgeoisie, and then Trump said, yes, you know, we'll talk. He was surprised. He ran into it when he got the information that from the Korean, the president of South Korea, he ran into the newsroom at the Capitol and started saying, yeah, we're going to meet, etc. Threw everybody off, threw his staff off, threw all of his so-called advisors off, and all bourgeoisies are concerned about this because they're containing this North Korean demon and what have you. Now Trump saying he's going to meet with them. And so all these people who claim they want for peace, all these people who were complaining, Trump's talking about bombing and Rocket Man and all this stuff, and he should be negotiating now that it's possible. Well, they're saying that, you know, yeah, negotiation is good, but Trump, you know, he's not prepared. He doesn't know how to negotiate. He needs to be doing this and that. And then he didn't set any conditions for negotiating. You need to set some conditions. As though, you know, they can determine the legitimacy of any people. And so this is throwing everything. And then you hear people from the White House come back and say, well, it's supposed to be a meeting, but we don't think it's going to be a meeting. Then somebody comes, yes, it's going to be a meeting. So it's because none of this was planned. Yeah. So you should know that. And you should know, like, some of the motive forces for all of this, because the Korean thing has been a problem, just like we are a problem for the same reason. Just like Black Power 96 and all these things that we do are designed to extract us from this system that they have created for the purpose of bleeding everybody. Every struggle is about that. And that's what we're seeing in Korea. So I just wanted to, you know, just briefly, say something about it. It wasn't as brief as it should have been. But you should know this because people are talking about it, and they're talking about it wherever you're located. Even in the housing projects, people have some comments and observations about that. And the other thing is that we're a revolutionary organization. It's really important to keep that in front of us because many people who are in the party have never been in this kind of organization before. You've participated in online stuff and sometimes on your campuses, and you've participated perhaps in some of the demonstrations when a cop killed somebody, etc. But to be in this kind of organization is different. And because our objective is not just to protest. It really isn't just a protest. I mean, if it were up to me, I'd get a bullhorn and walk up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and call on everybody to come out with your hands up and assume the position. I mean, and that's just end this thing, you understand? But it's not going to happen like that, bro. So we have to create a kind of organization that would take it upon itself to relieve our people and the world of this horrible system that's killing and bleeding and has been doing it for the last 600 years, at least for African people. That's what we're about. Anybody who doesn't get that, you're in the wrong room. The NAACP office, somebody give me the phone number or something. I mean, you could be some other place like that, but you're in the wrong room. It's the difference. Now, to do this is not an easy thing because here we are talking about overturning this oppression. We're talking about going up against a system that just a few days ago was talking about eradicating the whole Korean people, wiping off the Korean peninsula. This ain't no game.
Right,
you understand?
Right.
If you're playing, you're the only one playing. Yeah, you're the only one playing. Nobody is. You playing touch and flag football. You understand? Against the NFL. So they are not playing. Yeah. And so if you're going to contend with them, you have to have a certain kind of organization. You can't do this with any kind of organization. I would not trust just any kind of organization, and you shouldn't either. You should require of your leadership that we promote, create, and fight for the kind of organization that will allow us to win in this contest against white power. You should require that. You should require that. And because this kind of organization is new to a lot of people, sometimes people do get excited about somebody who's talking about getting rid of oppression and talking about this and that. Say, wow, I want to be a part of that. Let me be a part of that. But that's because these are people who only see us when we're making speeches or we're in a demonstration. They don't know what's involved in what it is that we're trying to do. And then sometimes when they come into the organization, and they get attracted to the organization because of the high principles that we hold, for one thing. So when they come into the organization, they say, I can't live up to this. Too often, they don't say, I'm going to quit because I can't live up to this. They never say that. They never say that. I'm going to quit because y'all talked about me, or you said something wrong, or you didn't, talk too loud when I was in my company. Here our people are being killed and oppressed all over the planet Earth. And you saying it's about you, and I'm gonna quit because I know y'all slander people when they leave. So you leaving to be slandered. That's what you're saying, right? And we create an organization just for the purpose of slandering you. It's not about that at all. That's dumb. And nobody in this meeting is that dumb. You understand? Or you would have been with them. and the truth is this. I recognize this, and you must recognize this. Some of the most rabid anti-party forces on the planet Earth, and there are a bunch of them, right? Are ex-party members because they can't tell the truth about why they are not in the party. They can't say, I can't live up to these ideals. They can't say, I can't sacrifice going to the ball game when I know I should be out here with the burning spear or doing this or that. And so they say, the party is the problem. And not me. So here we the party. We've been here for almost 50 years and whatever, being the problem. You understand? Before most of the people were born, being the problem, with many people who they claim that they idealize. We've been here being the problem, engaged in real struggle and created a magnificent party and incredible institutions that contribute to our liberation. And the question is whether or not we, people in our party, even today, want to keep on that trajectory or go someplace else. And I truly understand. I definitely understand if you don't want to be here.
Yes.
You don't have to be attacking me. you don't have to be, I don't want to be here. That's all you got to say. Have the courage. Have the courage to stop saying, I can't handle it. I don't want to be here. That was a brother who used to be in the party. He was here in 1996. Is that the year when the police attacked this party headquarters, 300 strong? Shot us up with tear gas, tried to set the building on fire, surrounded us, set houses all in this community on fire. This brother came from another state called Baltimore. And after this stuff happened, this brother said, he said, I'm changing my name back to what it was. You understand? I'm gonna tell you what it's saying. He said, just call me the other name now. He said, because he said, I'm leaving. I'm going back. And he literally cried, boo-hooed right here, and then went back to Baltimore. I've heard of him since then. He's a great revolutionary now in Baltimore. You've seen him. But he doesn't say, I left because of this. I mean, he can't say I left because they scared me to death. He can't say that. They're going to scare him in Baltimore too. White power will scare you. I'm scared of white power. Anybody rational thinking human being is scared of white power. You know what I'm saying? But the difference is when your fear immobilizes you and keep you from doing what you have to do, then that's no longer fear, that's cowardice. And so there are a whole bunch of cowards, you know, who can't say I'm a coward, right? They say, I'm not the coward, something's wrong with them. Huey P. Newton, they said, you know, because they were afraid. Huey was one of the most courageous human beings you would ever meet. You know, I could talk about that. But people who, he frightened people. People who were around him. Huey would walk in the middle of the cops with a gun or with fists. And Huey would fight the police with fists in the police station. And that would scare the hell out of people. This crazy nigga getting all of us in trouble. You understand? And so they can't say why they don't like you or why they don't want to be with you. I'm telling you now, because you're running into your communities and on your campuses and on your prison cells and in your neighborhoods, everywhere we're located. And that's part of what's happening. So we talking about a revolutionary organization. We know everybody ain't going to be with us, and that's all right. But you don't have to, you don't even have to join. You can support the party if you like these principles. Don't get us both in trouble by coming in and then you support us in some other ways. You know, rights. We used to get envelopes filled with money to people, no name, no address, cash. You know, right on. Do that if you want to. Do what you can to support, but don't attack us like that. So where we're going, we got an incredible Congress that's happening. This is going to be a magnificent Congress. It's going to be a Congress that's conducted at the new Uhuru House in St. Louis. And we've got magnificent comrades who are in St. Louis right now. I mean, I can't even describe the heroism that these comrades are involved in, because in a matter of what, has it been 6 months yet that this thing, 6 or 7 months, you know, they've transformed the whole African community. And when I say they transformed it, everybody in the community doesn't understand it. I'm not a hunter. You've heard me say that before. I'm not a hunter, but I've heard that you can shoot a running deer in the heart, and the deer could still run another 50 yards and it's dead. You understand? And that's, you know, so people don't necessarily recognize it in St. Louis. A lot of people don't recognize the transformation that's already happened. One. Every organization that's in St. Louis that's never done anything but been able to walk around flow showing, you know, people got to look at them in comparison to what's happened in the last 6 or 7 months. That's a major transformation. Every elected black official that's in St. Louis that's never taken the kind of stuff that we've done in just a short period of time. That's affecting the whole situation and the consciousness of everybody there. It's going to take a little while for that to catch up with some people, but that's what's happening right now under their feet. That's who we are in the African People's Socialist Party. And these heroic comrades there. When I say heroic, I don't mean just because they work, and that's what you do. Anybody who's ever worked with Deputy Chair. Yeah. But she works, doesn't she? You know, and sometimes you get upset with her because she's calling you from the job because she's been there waiting for you to show up, and you've been trying to find a reason not to show up. You understand? And so, you know, that's an incredibly significant thing that we're doing, transform this entire. Now, what do? People complain about gentrification. This is an anti-gentrification project. You understand? Yeah. Deteriorating communities and stuff like that, economic development, that's what's happening right there. And so, you know, that's something that we are doing, and you should be proud of that. But everybody in the party ain't gonna be doing that. Right. But you can't support it wherever you are. Yes. But everybody in the party should be doing political work, and that's the point I want to make. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the party has the responsibility of exercising leadership in the communities, in the prisons, and on the jobs, and in the campuses where we are. You should have a stack of Brenningsfield newspapers everywhere you go. That is party work. Yes. I was in South Africa, where I'll be returning in the next several days, and talking to a leader of one of the organizations there, and I asked this person, what is the day-to-day work of party members? And the comrades, he stopped. And then he didn't have an answer. He came back and said, I don't understand what you mean, the day-to-day work of the party, right? And the fact is, the party members should be working all the time. And the day-to-day work, if nothing else, if you don't have any other assignment, your assignment is move that burning spear. Get out there in the streets, in the communities, on the campus, on the prison cells, wherever you're located, with the Burning Spear newspaper. That's how you lead. You lead because the people who live in the housing projects, they read our paper. They know what's happening in Korea too. Yeah. They don't know just what happened in the housing project. This is an educated working class. We begin to create revolutionary working class intellectuals, not some petty bourgeois force up there. You understand? Yeah. And we begin to write in the language that they speak and understand, etc. That's our work, day-to-day work. If you're not selling the burning spear, something must be broken. You must be saying, why aren't you selling the burning spear? Yeah. And I would even ask, why Ortegas didn't order the spear, and why Asani Huru didn't, and Brandy Ebert, and Dwayne Wardlow, and Daryl Watkins, and Danita Jackson, and Dedan Robertson, and Hashim Bisalam, and Keith Logan, and Kyung Gozi Binamu, and Lamont Watson, and Lisa Todd, and Kake Bekasisa, and Marcus Prince, and Muteba Mandu, and Tomwe Gashaye, and Reed Powell, and Tiffany Murphy, and Virginia Evans haven't ordered the burning spear. Why you should be having the burning spear. Yes. And you should read it too. Yes. If you read it, you might sell it. Yes. So, coming out of this Congress, more responsibility is going to be transferred to members of the party, not just selling the burning spear, but that's important too. We're going to see NPDOM and party forces opening up offices throughout in every local community. Everywhere we are, we should have offices there. If there's an NPDOM chapter or branch someplace, they should have an office. Should have an office in the working class community, in the communities that's catching all the hell, in the communities where the gentrification is happening. That's our anti-gentrification program. To have the party there, have a place where people want to find us, they can come to this place. They can see our posters, they see the red, black, and green flag. They know political education happens right there in the community. We show movies and stuff like that. Otherwise, people have a tendency to hide in our centers in different places and don't have a relationship to the community, to be integrated into community. Our child care collectives get built right there out of those local offices, and our community gardens get built right there out of those local offices. And we have not only the burning spear, but we also selling dashikis, and we have other kinds of materials, and our pies and other stuff gets sold right there from these local offices, and that begins to expand our capacity in terms of production, economically and otherwise, and politically. Yes. Because we have problems, because our people are not organized. When I say our people, I'm talking about the class. Yes. Because they were organized. That's what the Panthers were. That's what Jomo was. That's what the party used to be at a certain time, in the communities, deeply embedded in the communities, so that if we were going to run a sister or a brother for political office in that community, we didn't have to worry about what the local Democratic Party and all these other forces or the big shot Negroes, because we knew the people were going to come with us. When the rebellions happened here in this city, the people with us. I used to be able to walk on any campus in this city and be able to bring all the African students out of there with a wave of a hand. That's what we have to have the ability to do. That means that we have to reintroduce ourselves to the community, our people in the community on the ground. So sound the burning spear, etc. And I also want to say that this is a time where you'll see more and more people who the state, the government, you know, the government don't want black people to be free. Otherwise, we'd be free, right? Right? You know that. They don't want, we would be free if they want, we wouldn't have ever been enslaved if the government wanted us to be free. So the government has a number of programs to keep us enslaved and to keep any force that's trying to win our freedom from being effective. And one of the most recent things they have is the so-called black identity extremists. Now you got a black identity. Everybody in here has a black identity in this meeting and what have you. And you're talking about you want to have your own government and that we are not Americans, we're Africans, etc. That's a black identity extremist. That's a problem for them. And we've gone through this before. We've seen it in the 1960s, and they sent all kinds of agents and other things into our organization. And I'm concerned because we're beginning to see things not just within a movement in general, and also in the party ranks that's disturbing. And one of the disturbing things is that this comrade out of Chicago who would send an email go to Facebook rather, a post by a comrade who's close to us, and he assumed she was in the party. And this comrade is a probationary member. And he's asking her, you know, what's going on? You know, I haven't seen you lately. You know, I see you up using a slave name and not your African name. So he's suspicious. And then I see that the party has a big old turnover all the time. And then they got all these young people, and these young people, you know, I'm telling me what to do. I'm 64 years old. And I don't see the older people, and I see people, you know, leaving the organization, and something must be wrong with the organization. And I just want to help the chairman. That's the only reason I'm talking to you. I've known about the party for a while, and I've been around, et cetera, et cetera. That ain't nobody trying to help us. Right. He said, last time I was at this thing in Washington, D.C., I was sitting at the table, and I was just talking I was like interviewing the chairman. And Chimamanda was sitting there, and he wasn't saying nothing. And Aaron was sitting there, and all he was doing was whispering to Kalunda. And I mean, this is the kind of discussion he's having. And he's saying selective kinds of things that he thinks will also put a bug, you know, in our ear, you know, the Aaron Kalunda thing and all of this, but he's also trying to drive a wedge between the party and this sister. And so the sister said, what is this? What's it about? And I, you know, told her I had problems with it too. And so she sent him, went back to him on Facebook and said that, well, you know, the party, although I'm not a member, he probably thought he was. She was. It practiced democratic centralism, and if you have a question, you should ask the chairman. I mean, he had written this whole long thing. He said, yeah, I know you're right. I'm sorry for having said anything to you. Uhuru got off the thing. We haven't heard from him anymore. I don't think. Did he show up any other meetings yet?
No, and he ended.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he canceled his payment to the party.
He canceled his dues and everything else. And that's before, and the only thing was said to him, the day he did that, the only thing that was said to him is that if you got an issue, say something to the chairman. And of course, what he was doing, we don't know who else he's been in touch with like that. He's dropping larceny, splitting the party if he can. And I'm just happy that this sister out of St. Louis, right? That's where the work is happening, right? She got in touch with me, and then she busted him when he said something to her. And so, you know, I am not going to say that this comrade, Eminari Sifu, is the police. I'm just going to say that's acting like the police. That's acting like we've seen the police act before. And I believe that, though, that if you're going to be the police, pay your dues. And sell the spear, you know. But the thing is that I'm just telling you this so that there's stuff happen. people have a right not to be in our party.
Yes.
That's why we go through this whole process, even before you come in, to see, go through this process and so that you can make a decision too. And we can make a decision whether you want to be here or not. But do a principled thing. Just say, I don't want to do this. Yeah. We can live with that. All of us can. And I'm saying this for people who might still be sort of hanging on for whatever reasons. That's not principle, because we have a lot of work to do. And it's an unprincipled thing for you to be here, because you sort of put a drag on stuff if you're not going to be here for the best reasons. We want African people to be free, and for that to happen, African people have to have the organization that makes that. And I want to say finally, because I'm going to be disciplined a bit. I'm not going to be super undisciplined. See, somebody just stuck a note in my face saying "time's up," but it's one of them young people. But one other thing is that part of this process going forward, and certainly coming out of the Congress, is that we're going to see more and more people who are in the party really leading mass organizations. Cadre is somebody who's doing what those folk are doing in St. Louis. It's what Comrade Kalambayi is doing. It's what the ability for us to have a comrade who can go into Huntsville, Alabama, and open up this shop and do everything, fight everything against all the odds to make the shop work. It's what the Ejide is doing in organizing African National Women's Org. That's what Cadre is. And that's what more and more people who are members of the party are going to be called on to do, because it's not just hiding in the party. It's not just being part of the group. It's being carrying out your responsibility as leaders of the African people. So, uhuru.
Before we move on to the next portion of the, I was going to mute the two numbers.
Continue saying something.
I'm going to unmute the call so we can get the names of people who have come on to the meeting.
All participants are unmuted.
I'm going to call the last 4 digits of your cellular number. So please just give me a name. We have 6825.
That's me, Jordan.
Jordan.
Last name, we have 2 Jordans. Last name?
What's your last name?
Strudwick, Strudwick.
Okay. And next we have 3740. 3740.
Oh, let's go be in a Bantu Shango.
Bantu Shango.
In South Africa. Tafari and Hassan. Who else is from South Africa? Occupied Azani's on?
They're on with the group, so.
Okay.
Uhuru comrades, we're going back into lecture mode.
Is there anyone that we don't have? Huh? Is there anyone that we don't have? Is there anyone on the phone that we don't have?
You might not have me as Yejide, but I'm also online as well.
I got you yesterday.
We got you.
We have you.
All participants are muted.
Uhuru, everybody. So I just want to give another round of applause for Chairman's overview. That was so powerful, Chairman. I really want to thank you for that. And, especially everything you said about, people who leave the work just to leave in a principled way, just say you can't do it. And I wanted to go through an email that the Office of Secretary General sent out really quickly, and just to make sure we have everyone's unity on here. And it states, the title, if you did not get it yet, it is Cease and Desist from Contacting These Anti-Party Forces. And the email reads, Uhuru comrades, this email is to serve as a mandate that this list of people have been found to be anti-party forces that seek to undermine and slander the party. All contact with these anti-party forces must cease and desist. All of them need to be unfollowed, unfriended, and blocked on social media. The charges listed under these anti-party forces are a short abbreviation of the lengthy and detailed charges that have been filed against them. This information is being sent out as a courtesy of the party. I put that in just to make sure that we all understand that sometimes we're not going to get, any explanation of what happened or anything like that. And we have to unite with that because that's democratic centralism, and to move forward with the work. And to unite with not contacting these party forces. Now, I know this list is long. This list just didn't happen yesterday. Some of these people are months, and one of these people actually was a year ago. I just wanted to put it out there because we've been seeing a lot of people contacting these members and talking to these members, and we wanted just to put it out with transparency. So we have Nyabingi Fungisai, and we put, should I read out there? Okay, so we have Nyabingi Fungisai, and you can look at the email and see what the charges are. Kalonda Malumba, aka Deja Steer, Aaron O'Neill, Rich, Liu Quayeta, aka Cleopatra Ballers, Eminari Sifu, aka Lofton Albert Wheeler, Ngoe Fulian, aka Natasha Hellman, Alienza Azikwe Bandela, aka Olivia Evans, Muhammadu Ajain, Uwazi Isikumba Ya Zamani, aka Nick Mulroy. And it says that this mandate is not up for debate. If you have disunity with this mandate, please contact your direct leadership ASAP. Everyone must respond with the email with unity. And if you haven't, please go to that email and respond with your unity. And now we're going to go to security, led by Comrade Chimurenga Selembao.
Uhuru. So I want to really appreciate the chairman's overview and also the things that Gazi was talking about in terms of people who have been expelled. Also, the chairman mentioned the situation with Imanari and his contact from Facebook to a person who wasn't in the party. He thought they were in the party, but he broke a whole long list of party rules of discipline that made him a really suspect force. And what we have been talking about in prior party meetings, party-wide meetings, was this question of social media. It's a big issue because we continue to see these kind of messages, inappropriate postings on social media that we believe have to be addressed. And I'm really happy to say that we have come up with a protocol that's developed by Agitprop and the National Security Office in collaboration. And if you don't know, Akile Anai is the National Director of Agitation and Propaganda. We collaborated on this protocol. I did a draft, and then she really did a great job adding a lot of meat onto the bones. But we want to really just can't stress enough how important it is for party members to be cadre and act like cadre. The memorandum that and protocol that Comrade Anai will be reading talks a lot about the do's and don'ts of social media, and she's going to be giving you some specific information. But I just want to say it doesn't include things like telephone conversations, emails, but we're also in discussion about collaborating on protocols for that as well. So with no further ado, I want to introduce the Director of Agitation and Propaganda, Akile Anai. She's going to read through the protocol that's been developed by myself and the Agitation and Propaganda Department.
Uhuru, comrades, really want to appreciate this meeting, Chairman's overview, and also the Director of National Security, Chimurenga Selembao, for assisting or coming together to create this long overdue protocol for social media. Because as we understand, social media is a huge tool, used now. It's something that's just really been bursting in, and it's something that we can use obviously for a recruitment tool, but we have to know how to use it especially as party members. So this document is going to be made accessible to everyone afterwards, but this is serving as basically the forewarning, letting you know this is what is expected of our comrades, and these are the protocols to be adhered to, and you will receive this document. So there shouldn't be any question as to what is, or what isn't prohibited in terms of social media, and what is expected. This is it. So you guys just adhere to it, and if you see your comrades not adhering to it, then it needs to be reported. But I'm going to go through it. As a member of the African People's Socialist Party, it is important to understand that we are party every day, all the time. This means that our jobs as political organizers does not take a back seat to our own perceived interests. This also requires us to seize every opportunity to win the masses to our party and our movement through the various mass organizations that we have. Our social media accounts offers us this opportunity, not only to wage ideological struggles with those who choose to interact with our pages, but to recruit them as a result of winning those struggles. As a member of the party, we are to represent ourselves as such among the masses, which applies to our social media accounts, because this is another platform where the people view us. Our social media pages should reflect the views of our party, and we should depict ourselves as the vanguards of our fight for freedom. It must not serve to undermine our party. To ensure that our social media pages align with our party's mission, the Department of Agitation and Propaganda, as well as the National Office of Security, has developed this memorandum to serve as our guide whenever we use social media. So why are there social media protocols? There are many reasons for social media protocols, the bulk of it stated above. There is also the major concern for safety of our comrades and our party that we cannot compromise. For instance, we have experienced a number of occasions when inappropriate postings were made on social media, from sexually suggestive photographs to posts concerning the use of weapons. This inappropriate use of social media not only undermines the work of the party and its leadership, it presents a threat. As we should all be aware, the state is relentless in its fight to crush any and all forms of resistance, especially if it's tied to the International African Revolution. The state has no problem in creating fake circumstances to imprison African leaders within the Black liberation movement, seen with the counterinsurgency of the 1960s and its modern-day resurrection in the form of the FBI coin Black identity extremists. In fact, a brother in Dallas, Texas, was recently arrested for being a quote-unquote BIE after he was stalked for 2 years by the police for his postings on social media. As revolutionaries, we are already targets. We cannot present ourselves on a silver platter for the state. How many weapons you may or may not have shouldn't be discussed with anyone, even in casual conversation with your comrades, and it most certainly shouldn't be promoted on social media for the masses and the state to see. The same stance must be taken in regards to posting sexually suggestive content. This is not a case of respectability politics. This is about upholding the character of our party and presenting ourselves as the leadership of the African working class. We are to win the people to our political line, our work and institutions, not our sexuality, our bodies, etc. If we wouldn't imagine our leadership posting sexually explicit content, we should hold ourselves to the same standards. What types of posts aren't permitted? Sexually explicit posts for reasons stated above, posts about weapons for reasons stated above, posts about killing anyone, even if it's in regards to inevitable revolutionary violence. A call to kill, inflict major bodily harm on someone is not permitted, as it can lead to state targeting and even result in a criminal offense. Gossip posts. Gossip is in direct violation of our rules of party discipline. Criticisms of our comrades, of the work, or any party-related information discussed in a meeting that has not gained approval for discussion amongst the public is prohibited. Internal struggles that we have must be that, internal to our party. Posts that slander, undermine the African working class. The party's responsibility is to uplift the African working class. This goes for sharing posts that appear to be comedic, but at our people's expense. Public criticisms of party members of party work / decisions, similar to the reasoning of point 4, we must not make our struggles public unless otherwise advised. Violation of this point will be reviewed as an attack on the party, period. How will violations of these protocols be handled? Violations of this protocol will be considered a violation of democratic centralism, as well as the rules of party discipline. Some of the rules pertinent to this memo are as follows. Rule 3 of the rules, and these are all from the rules of party discipline. Reveals party business without authorization has broken party discipline. Rule 9, refuses to recognize and follow party leadership through words or actions has broken party discipline. Rule 10, discards or weakens party leadership as opposed to strengthening party leadership has broken party discipline. Rule 15, does not carry himself worthy of emulation by the masses has broken party discipline. Rule 19, engages in adventurous and individualistic acts has broken party discipline. Rule 20, fails to carry out party policy as manifested by the party constitution, party documents, and the Central Committee has broken party discipline. Violations of the protocol may result in disciplinary action against the member in question, up to and including the termination of their party membership. Comrades, we are African internationalists first. Our revolutionary agenda is what guides both our personal lives and our political activities. Our standards of conduct must be of the highest character. We are the vanguard party of the African working class, and we have the responsibility to display that. We must set examples of both revolutionary political and moral conduct. Comrades, we will be expecting everyone to comply with this protocol. If you observe violations of the protocol, you are obligated to report it to the Director of Department of Agitation and Propaganda, as well as the National Security Office of the African People's Socialist Party. And in this document, you will receive both of those emails to those departments. So shouldn't be any problems. But that is the overall social media protocol. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades. We are still in the lecture mode, but we are getting ready to go into our question and answer portion. So in doing so, to keep this process more organized, you're going to have to press *6. Oh.
All participants are unmuted.
Okay, Uhuru, comrades. So now we are entering the question and answer portion of the agenda.
Before doing that, I really would like to acknowledge some of the comrades in the international community, because there's a tendency often to have this sort of American-centric, view. And I know we've got a host of comrades in occupied Tanzania or South Africa who are with us. And I think Comrade Leader Tafari there is, and Asa and Val and Veliso and Mohau there. And I don't know if anyone else is there from occupied Tanzania or South Africa. I think I heard out of Sweden, Makta, out of Sweden. Is there anyone else who is connected from Africa or from Europe, or how about Caribbean, any other place?
Is there anyone on the phone?
So I just wanted to acknowledge that these comrades, and I hope that, want to acknowledge these comrades. It's important for everybody to know that these comrades are participating because we are one party. And so are we opening now for discussion and questions and what have you?
Yes.
Yes. But we also had someone who came on with the last 4 digits of their cell phone number being 8494. Can you please identify yourself?
That's me, yesterday.
Oh. Uhuru.
Okay. So.
Uhuru, all righty, comrades. So now we're open for questions and answers. So please, if you have a question, now is the time.
And interventions, comments, you out there in the community, I'm hoping that you're working. I'm hoping you're doing something. You may want to share some of that as well. So we did everything. Is that it? Uhuru?
Yeah, Uhuru, this is Yejide. I just want to appreciate this party meeting and for the email that was sent yesterday with regards to, the comrades who party forces or members of the work are still interacting with, and I totally unite with that, and I will be responding to it. And I just appreciate the chairman explaining, the whole Korean situation, and I think that bit of history helps us because I know that a lot of Africans have been, you know, very scared around the whole North Korean question, the nuclear question. So I think that was really helpful, and I just appreciate the discussion. And actually, after that initial email came out about those comrades, I had to have one of the comrades that I'm sponsoring actually got in contact with me, and we had a discussion about it. So you know, he had some questions, and I helped him walk through it. So I just think that that for the purposes of just really helping new comrades really understand, like, this is a party. We're not a club. We're not, you know, some sort of like, you know, 4-H thing. Like, we are the party, and we adhere to party discipline. And I think that when you're in the party, you need to understand that, you know, we're trying to make a revolution and we're trying to win. And, you know, enemies of the party can't be in the party, and you shouldn't try to be friendly with the party if you're the party.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, don't be friendly with non-party forces if you're not the party.
Anti-party. I think that what really should be appreciated is that if we appreciate our own membership and the party, if we hold the membership in the party as being really important, then we can't do that, because that undermines the significance of the party. Our participating with these, it's not like, you know, now you left the party, we oppose it, because people leave the party and we still talk to them, we still have relations, but to become an anti-party force, then is to unite with the anti-party actions that they're involved in. And I think that's really important, because it belittles party membership, and it demoralizes people who see you, here you are, they're in the party and they are trying to take a righteous stance, and then here you are dealing with these forces who are clearly anti-party forces. They become demoralized. That impacts us in a real negative way. So I think that's why it's important. You know, we should really understand that.
Anyone else? I saw that Jordan was about to say something. Jordan, if you're speaking, your phone's on mute.
This is Keith Logan from Brooklyn.
Brother Keith.
How you doing? 2 questions. One, what you think about some of the, I guess you could say, young and older scholars or people that use the social media, like Umar Johnson and Boyce Watson and Clyde Anderson, just to name a few, as far as trying to enlighten Black Africans, as far as, you know, the bourgeoisie that's going on and the different stuff as far as in America and the disparity overseas, as far as what you think about their work, as far as what they're doing.
Well,
and the next question is, okay, but we'll go with that, because I got my
the task is to change the world, not explain the world. And I'm not even suggesting that some of the people you mentioned are even involved in trying to explain the world. They distort so much. And, you know, I'm concerned about at least one of those persons who has been collecting money from African people, and there's been nothing, no product, nothing discriminated. It's imaginary, it's a lie. He's a thief. He's a thief, and he's stealing money from our people. And our people are so desperate for anything that they give money to these forces. And so I have problems with that. And practice is primary. If you can have the best conversation in the world if you're not doing anything. 1, so practice is primary. 2, organization is fundamental. What organizations are they members of? Are they organized like you, brother? Are they in an organization? Or are they just people who are out there on their own being smart? And how do you measure your smartness if you never test it by what happens in the world? You understand? You smart because you say you're smart? Can we find some other evidence of how smart you are? So I have issues with most of the people, and it's not on a personal thing, as I'm trying to make a struggle to free our people. And just to have discussions for the discussion's sake is meaningless, and it wastes our time. None of us, including you, have time to just be involved in that kind of stuff.
Chairman, we have a question from online. Anika?
From Christine Wilson, I really want to appreciate the chairman's overview, especially the summation of the situation with North Korea. It helps me to discuss this when I have the proper historical and political content. We also have from Martha Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman, for your leadership and summation on Korea. As African internationalists, we need to be aware of what's happening in Korea and the world, etc. Regarding the email sent out by S.J. Ghazi, it's much appreciated because, like the chairman said, forces have to be honest with themselves in relation to the party and not blame the party. Just because they refuse to follow the leadership and seek to avoid blame rather than admitting they want to serve their individual self rather than the masses. I'm the chairwoman of APSP Stockholm, Sweden chairwoman.
Uhuru, do we have any more questions, comments, or salutes on the phone?
Ooh, Chairman, this is Toss from San Diego.
Uhuru, comrade, how you doing?
Doing good, Chairman.
I saw the photo of you with the comrades from Union de Barrio.
Yes, I've met with them plenty of times since last year, but yeah, the memorial service in honor of Ernesto Steels, it was great. Like, it was a great account of, you know, his work and, you know, even from who he was raised by. I forgot the name of
the African
that. Yeah. He talked about how much that was influenced him. So it was very, you know, moving for me just to see that. And it even got to the point like they wanted me to speak. And I didn't have no plans to speak, but I had to speak because it was so much. Like, I could tell that he had undying love and optimism for the people. So that was very great.
Splendid. Yeah. Go ahead,
but I guess so. Regarding my, you know, questions I have or whatnot. So I'm still struggling to, you know, in practice as far as like, you know, I'm not trying to say I sit around imagining what, you know, I guess trying to understand like why. I'm struggling when I say this. What the nature of communism for our people is like, you know, once we like from socialism to communism, I guess like I'm still reading, you know, Marx, Lenin, and all that stuff just to, in African and get more familiar with our theory as well. But to me, I'm just trying to see, you know, like what abstract you have to put that further in context, because I have active imagination, but I can't see that far. I have that kind of foresight. So,
Well, there's some evidence for us already. I mean, it has to do with how the world was before white people attacked it, before Europe attacked it. I mean, if you study Marx and Lenin and Engels and what have you, you understand and heard of this thing that they refer to as primitive communism or primitive communalism. And so this is something they say existed, although they can't show you evidence of that having existed in Europe. The primitive communism or primitive communalism that they show us is among the Iroquois here in the Americas and among some other peoples. And if you know anything about your own history and the history of African people, as compared to how Europeans even relate to each other, how you have this concept of the nuclear family. And then they call us as people with extended families. Actually, I think we have the real families and they got the weird families. I mean, that needs another kind of characterization. You know, where you got the man, a woman, and the two children and the dog, right? That's the European version. Our family, I mean, it's based on economic principles. I say principles, what I really mean is modes of production that preceded the introduction of Europe into history in many different ways. But part of what I want to say is that the world will look like what we create. And I mean that in a literal sense. And that part of what our task is to break down, destroy all of those economic and political barriers. And you break down the economic barriers, you are at the same time breaking down the political barriers that stand between the human beings who produce life and the product that they produce. And when you do that, you get rid of the whole situation of workers and bosses, and you get rid of the whole situation of so-called surplus value, where somebody creates wealth, collects wealth created by somebody else. From that, you remove the basis for jealousy. If everybody is equal and everybody has what they need, jealousy may exist, but it's going to be unusual and weird. You know, and people look at this, that's a weird person. You understand? It will function even now, what we call personal and social relationships. I've been told by comrades that from Southern Africa that among the Maasai, who are in Kenya, an ethnic group in Kenya, that if a brother came home from the hunt or something and there was a spear in front of the hut, he knew somebody else was there with his wife. So he kept on moving till he found a place where there was no spear. Unless, I always said, unless it was a short man, they might kill him because he didn't want to have any short sons, right? Maasai. But my point is that all these things that we consider social and political relations have their basis in economic systems. And economic systems based on exploitation reveal themselves in these social relations. So we're talking about the people being in charge. We're talking about people who produce value, owning and controlling value, running whatever factories that they exist. And the incentive for production is not profit, but to benefit the people. And you know, you asked a really weighted question. We could spend another couple of hours trying to discuss that, and we don't have that kind of time. But I hope I at least hinted at some stuff.
Chairman. We have a comment from an international caller, Maureen Cask, who's our comrade in Kenya, who says, Uhuru Chairman, I'm glad to report to you that I have my first recruit. I've submitted her details to Luwezi. I hope he can get back to her soon. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Is that Ka? Uhuru, my dear sister. Yes.
That he's been following us on social media, and that's how they got passionate about freedom. And then they said,
I'm glad you said about freedom, but go ahead.
And she said, because of you, you changed my F-word life.
Uhuru. Uhuru, sister. I'm looking for you at the Congress.
Yes. Uhuru, who else is on the call that would like to make a comment or question before we go into the room? Anybody in St. Louis, that big group?
Uhuru.
Oh, Olofin, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yeah, Uhuru is Olofin from Hawaii.
Uhuru.
Work with the Burning Spear.
In Hawaii. Okay.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Okay, question for the chairman. Well, first of all, I really want to appreciate the overview that you gave on North Korea and all of the parties' work up until now. My question to you, Chairman, I guess, is what can we expect to come out of these negotiations with the United States and Korea once they start discussing like getting rid of nuclear capacity, supposedly? Is this like their way of going towards a parasitic relationship with white power in the colonized world, or? I guess that's my question.
And this comrade just called from Hawaii, where they just had the scare with the sirens going off and the threat of nuclear missiles on the way. Well, first of all, that's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say how much of this is diplomatic theater on both sides. And when I say on both sides, part of what I mean is that that they've succeeded in Trump even recognizing the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, which is a milestone. That's never happened before. And even the idea that Trump would be meeting is a milestone that's never happened before. And the balance of power has been altered to the extent that even though the US could wipe out Korean Peninsula, we really literally could, there is still the potential for severe damage being done in the United States, and not just in the United States, but to allies of the United States, both in Asia and other places around the world. So that changes things a lot, and it makes it necessary for the U.S. to really give serious consideration whether or not they want to make that. In terms of a really conventional war attacking Korea, that would be a bloody mess. They could not attack Korea without paying a horrible price that the United States is not willing to pay that price. I'm convinced of that. I can't even imagine even Trump talking about sending troops into Korea. The cost that would be so costly. It's not going to be Syria. It would be a real serious thing. So that's hard to say. So I don't know. And I also know that that even though Trump made this what appears to have been a rather spontaneous move to talk about negotiations, I'm not sure he's going to actually be able to do it, even if he wants to. There's a lot of pressure being put on Trump to start establishing conditions for even meeting. And the Koreans have not, as quiet as it's kept, as much as it's understated, the Koreans have not committed to denuclearization. They have not. They may have said that they would not shoot missiles and do tests and stuff like that for the period that they're talking about in negotiation, but they have not made that kind of commitment. So they left the door open enough so that the onus is on the United States of whether or not they will accept the negotiation. That puts them in a better place diplomatically. And so that would be important for them. And so in many ways, one could say that up to this point that Korea is the victor here. And in many ways, they've created a different situation because what they call South Korea, and the people in South Korea want to be united with their brothers and sisters on the other side of that artificially created border. So the political situation has been altered already. It's already altered. Where they go with that is hard to say. And I don't know. I can't speak for what the Koreans would do, but I know that they've withstood a whole lot up to now, and I don't see them throwing in the towel. I mean, they've had plenty of opportunities to surrender, and they haven't done it up to now. And in fact, what they've done is escalated their capacity to defend themselves from the United States. So it's hard to say what, if anything, will come, whether their negotiations will happen, and if they do, what will come of them. The one thing, if they happen, will come of them is that we'll have broken out of this isolated situation that the United States has imposed on them and denying their existence as a state. Let me just say, this question of them being a legitimate state is really important to the U.S. You ever notice how when you're looking at the news media and they report on what they call ISIS, or they report on, they say like the so-called Islamic State, or there's something like that. It is a state. It is a state, but they don't want to validate it as a state because that means they're fighting against a legitimate entity. Whether they like it or not, it's a state. Even they didn't say the so-called Nazis or the so-called Germany when they fought, or so-called Japan. It is a state, but it's a state that came into existence independent and separate from, in opposition to the designated state entities that Europe has recognized. And the fact of the matter is that it was Europe who defined all these areas where the Islamic State is located. Europe created Syria and Lebanon and Saudi Arabia and all these other places. And now you've got this entity that's there that's saying, you know, they created the caliphate and we are the state. And the United States said, no, we've already settled that problem. As far as they're concerned, the state already exists, a legitimate states there. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you for that, Chairman. Is there any other, we have, just before we start, we've got about 15 minutes extra, and I was wondering, Chairman, would you need, how would you like to use that 15 minutes? So I
would like to hear from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything from St. Louis? Anybody in St. Louis? I know they've made incredible progress in St. Louis.
If y'all are speaking, it's on mute, St. Louis.
The grand opening happened, right?
I don't think the grand opening happened,
No.
No. But I know that...
we have 4 feet there, 4 feet. Would you like to say something? We see 4 feet.
We got the
T'Challa.
You from St. Louis, right?
Yes. I was T'Challa in DC and Columbia was on also.
T'Challa.
I was waiting for them.
All right, comrades.
All right, Fofi, you can speak for them since they shy.
But she doesn't have to. I mean, yeah. I wanted to hear the people who are actually leading and working on that project.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because part of what has happened is I think we've got a demolition company that's going to level those two buildings. That's happened. We've taken that information to the office of the land LAR, whatever, LRA, and waiting now for them to do the paperwork so that we come into full possession of the properties and we destroy that. And, so that's already, and in the works. And also I wanted the comrades, Comrade Tafari or any of the comrades occupied Azania, do you have anything?
They do. They actually just said something.
Okay.
Austin Tafari asked, this is the same thing Tafari?
Well, it's yes.
I'll ask Austin, yes, Tafari. Okay, so Austin said, I would like to ask this. Could you please raise the fake APSP South Africa and how to avoid factionalism from getting out of hand to the extent that reactionaries end up winning as we see in the PAC? What did Tafari say?
He said, Uhuru Chairman, my question is how do we guard factionalism from getting out of hand, like ending up losing and reactionaries winning? And what do we do with the fake APSP here in Azania?
I'm not familiar with the factionalism that he might be talking about. That's really interesting, the so-called African People's Socialist Party in Azania. From what I have heard, and I was surprised, shocked to see the so-called APSP there. From what I had heard, that it was created by people who were in Umtata when I spoke at the Pan-Africanist Congress, Congress, 8th Congress. And that these are some of the people who split from the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania and created the African People's Socialist Party. I've heard that. And they call themselves a Marxist-Leninist organization. So I'm quite shocked because if they were really interested in the party, they could have connected with us. I think the question is really going to be what that means in legal terms right there for us and the comrades who are in occupied Azania. Because if they register that party, what does that mean? What kind of problems does that? What kind of problems that present for us? So that's what I would say about that. I'm not familiar with the factionalism that's being referenced here.
Who, Mark, is that you? Uhuru, are there any questions or comments? How about in the room? Eddie?
I think that in occupied Azania, one of the really important figures in modern history or contemporary history, I guess that is that oxymoronic to say contemporary history. But has Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. It was an interesting kind of force with some contradictions in terms of he was pacifist in some ways, and he did not understand the class question, but neither did Nkrumah before he was overthrown. And so was Lumumba, pacific in his approach to struggle initially, and he died as a consequence of that. But I mentioned Sobukwe because I think he was still a trailblazer. He was a follower of Nkrumah, by the way, who broke with the ANC precisely around the question of that land, That's something that seems to be being called, a lot of attention is being called to it now. Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the new president, who's the leader of the African National Congress, and along with the economic freedom fighters, they're talking about taking the land without compensation and stuff like that. And I think that speaks to certain kinds of contradictions that exist, both for the African National Congress in occupied Tanzania. It took a real nasty, dirty deal at the expense of our people, but we saw that coming a long time ago, which was the basis of the split, which is why the Pan-Africanist Congress split with the ANC in the first place. That Freedom Charter that allowed, contended that South Africa belonged to all who lived there. That meant the whites who stole the land, as well as the Africans who were suffering as a consequence of that theft and the oppression there. So Bugwe split with them. That's a really important part of the history. And the Pan-Africanist Congress was born, out of that process. And so the land question has been a critical question. And that Freedom Charter that many in this country and other places, people who call themselves Black Marxists and leftists and progressives, they hold up, their criticism of the ANC today is that they've abandoned the Freedom Charter. What we're saying is that Freedom Charter itself, and the Freedom Charter was written by Joe Slovo, as quietly as it's kept. And Joe Slovo was a white guy who headed up the Communist Party of South Africa. I mentioned Sobukwe because I think he was an important historical force, even though there were contradictions. He had contradictions, but he broke with them. He was influenced by Nkrumah, as was Lumumba. The 1958 meeting that they had in Accra, Ghana, is one of the things that really helped to develop a lot of the nationalist forces in Africa. And Lumumba, who was there, was impressed by that. That's what it helped to influence him. That was the politic that said that we want freedom, independence now, among other things. And they also talked about not just independence, but they talk about a united Africa, which is why, so Sobukwe promoted a united Africa. If you look at the PAC graphic, what do you call that, a logo? And you will see that they have Africa, thing of Africa, and then they have the star with these rays of light emanating, and that star is in Ghana, in Nkrumah, you see, which is a really important force. So they were pioneers of a really important thing, even though, like I said, they had contradictions. I mean, even Lumumba once, I had read where Lumumba once had advised all the Africans to make the way to win freedom is to make a friend of one white person. So, I mean, there was that was early on, that was before, but Sobukwe was one of the persons least, I feel, respected. And I feel like even what he tried to stand for, what he tried to do early on was abandoned, even by the PAC. Then he was really critical of opportunists. If you read some of the stuff that he wrote of opportunists, people who would take these deals and stuff like that, and he also promoted that the PAC, the base should be among the illiterate and near literate masses of the people. And he was, who were the poorest people there. That was how he had defined stuff. But when I get to Occupied Tanzania and I find out that in trying to choose their leader, their president, they resurrected a preacher who hadn't been with the organization. I forgot how many years had it been. Had it been, I don't know if it was 20 or 40 years. They had nothing to do with it, but they were looking for respectability. And they were trying to be ANC light, so to speak, and that's not going to win it. But I look forward to getting there and being with the comrades in Occupied Tanzania and building the party. And we're going to have to deal with that issue of the so-called South Africa, the African People's Socialist Party that's there, where they come from, you know.
Good. So now we're going to go to announcements with Comrade Alikia.
So we shall do announcements now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
All participants are muted.
Uhuru comrades, I'd like to thank everybody for coming on to this meeting. We are, well, I'm going to announce these next events. The first is ANWO, the inaugural international convention taking place on March 24th and 25th in Maryland. Yes, on the campus of the University of Maryland at the Niambru Cultural Center. This is, ANWO is an organization that brings African women into political life as a part of the International African Revolution. Keynote presenters include Yejide Orunmila, Antoinette Taylor, membership coordinator Gaida Cambone, Akile Anayi, and so many more. So for more information on that, visit anwouhuru.org. On April 7th and 8th, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations is having our second electoral campaign school, which will take place in St. Louis, Missouri at the new Uhuru House. This is where African people learn how to run on platforms that speak to the interests of the Black community, such as Black community control of the police, Black community control of schools, learn about recalls, referendums, and all of these things. Some of the presenters are Chairman Omali Echatella, Ajamu Baraka, who was the 2016 vice presidential candidate of the Green Party, Glenn Ford, who's the co-founder of the coalition, and just so many other presenters. So for information on that, visit Black is Back Coalition, everything spelled correctly, .org. Uhuru Solidarity Movement is having a convention in St. Louis, Missouri as well. That is taking place on April 14th and 15th. You can follow all of their social media to be able to find their Eventbrite. African Liberation Day is taking place May 26th in Washington, D.C. The African People's Socialist Party is having our 7th Congress in St. Louis, Missouri on October 6th through 13th, 2018. And lastly, the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise is taking place this December 9th through 16th, 2018. It's a fundraiser cruise for the African Socialist International. These stops are Belize, Mahogany Bay, Cayman Islands, and Cozumel, Mexico. So for information on that, you can visit uhrulegacycruise.org. Also, keep up with all of the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise social media, well, Facebook, and just stay tuned for other announcements.
Did K-Thing get a notification for this?
All right.
All participants are unmuted.
Uhuru, can I have the number? Who is on the last 4 digits phone number 0397? 0397?
397. That's me, Muteba. I'm at the store at the moment, so I haven't been part of much of this discussion.
Uhuru, thank you, Comrade.
All participants are muted.
All right. Uhuru, so as Chairman said, a part of our daily assignment as a member of the African Socialist Party is to sell the burning spear. And I just want to let you all know the March Spear is in, so you can go ahead if you haven't. So if you haven't already, go ahead and go to burningspearmarketplace.com and order your distributor bundle. All the probationary period members are expected to sell 25 spears a month, and out of probationary period party members are expected to sell 60, or 100 spears. So order your spears, burningspearmarketplace.com, get the distributor bundle. You can also become a subscriber and sponsor a prisoner to get the prison in the hands of our African brothers and sisters locked up in these concentration camps. Uhuru.
Uhuru, 25 a month for people who are on probation. That sounds extremely unambitious to me, but it is unambitious. I think that you get out there and hustle that newspaper. That's going to be a critical piece of work that we have to do. So I want to thank everybody for coming in onto this meeting. We don't have opportunities often to speak to each other. And also we have a situation where in many instances we have a lot of members who are not attached to particular organizations, which means that that inhibits inhibits party life. And so it's good for us to be able to come together like this, to be in touch and to be able to speak to each other, and even to be able to say what's happening with us. It's glad to hear from the comrades in Kenya. That's a dear sister in Kenya who's spent time here during our intensives and what have you. And there are other comrades in Kenya also. And the comrades from South Africa, comrades in Uganda. I don't know if they were involved, that is on the continent, Sierra Leone. I don't know if they were involved in this process or not. So I was glad for that to happen. And it's good for comrades here in the States to, and in Europe to have this connection organizationally with the brothers and sisters and comrades on the continent of Africa. We have a lot of work to do. We have this important Congress that's coming up. It's going to be telling in terms of development of the party. And I talk about the development of the party. This is the critical task of our revolution. A lot of people are looking to go out and fight the revolution. They're trying to find different avenues through which to do that. But the biggest task that we have is to create the vehicle for making that struggle, to strengthen, build the vehicle for making that struggle. And so building the party and the Congress is going to be critical for us, and for us not to even move precipitously, but to go ahead and develop the kind of powerful organization that the masses of African workers and peasants need to overturn this world of masters and bosses, to destroy this system based on capitalist exploitation. And what will happen, and this speaks just a tiny bit to something that was raised earlier. The African revolution is going to be critical for the destruction of capitalism as a world social system. The whole continent of Africa, the various places that Africans are located throughout this world, we move successfully, we make this revolution, and we destroy this whole false notion of socialism in one country, and because we will make a worldwide revolution, in part because of the consequence of slavery and colonialism that's taken us to all of these different places in the world and created the conditions that makes it necessary for us to overturn this system of misery and death. So I want to just really express appreciation for everybody being here. And everybody should be selling the burning spear and distributing our propaganda and putting the word out about who we are as an organization, working very seriously in the mass organizations, building our work with Zenzele in Houston for the All African People's Development Empowerment Project, working toward the establishment of the Black Ankh so that we can begin to take care of our own, just like as the white people are taken care of by the Red Cross and things like that. We have to build the African National Women's Organization. It has to become a powerhouse. It has to become the organization that women turn to begin to address the contradictions that afflict us. And as quiet as it's kept, the contradiction that afflict us is centered in the social system itself, in colonialism and what have you. And ANWO, the African National Women's Organization, is a group that's going to help to clarify that for everybody. Let's support the Black Power Blueprint. We still have a lot of work to do. That's an amazing project that we're involved in. We have different regions inside the United States and outside. In Southern Africa, we have regional work, build that whole Southern African region, build the region of the Caribbean, put the party down every place there. We have East Africa, West Africa, and then in Europe, Comrade Makta, who is the leader of the Stockholm, Sweden party organization, is also leader of the European regional work of the African People's Socialist Party. Build the regions. We build a region of throughout Europe, and then we have party organizations in France, and we do have good comrades in France. We have party organizations in Germany and England and various other places throughout the region. And that the same holds for the United States. The regional work is going to be critical moving forward. And, you know, we have comrades who have assumed the responsibility of building a region. In some instances, people who had the responsibilities and didn't do anything with it. But it's going to happen in the best possible way now. And then every individual who's in the party has to accept responsibility for the party itself. So it's not just this region, this leader, but all of us. And the best way all of us can accept responsibility for the party is to get that newspaper and go out and become a revolutionary evangelist to take African internationalism out among the masses. And this response, you know, every now and then we have discussions and somebody would say, well, how do we deal with this person or this organization that believes that Black people are not Africans or such and such, you know, listen, that's not the masses of the people. You know, you can spin your wheels in these circles where everybody knows everybody and you just come together to have the same silly arguments, so we can go and organize the millions of African people who are not organized by anybody, anything. That's our task. Go to the working class, go to the poor peasantry. Let's build this revolutionary movement. Let's go into the prisons, these dungeons, these concentration camps in every country. The United States has the largest, we have a prison there's a prison population in the United States of Africans who that's greater, larger than some so-called countries in Africa. Let's go into these prisons and organize our people. Let's organize their families and what have you as well. Let's build this party. That's the critical work that we have to do to make this revolution happen. And let's take responsibility for it. Let's really accept the responsibility of cadre, which means that this is our party. And anybody who wants to hurt our party is trying to hurt the future, is trying to hurt us. You can't be anti-party and be my friend. That's just impossible. I mean, you can not be in the party and be my friend, but you can't be against the party and be my friend. And I think everybody needs to have that attitude. So thank you again, comrades. And let's go out and build this party. And what's the slogan that's appropriate now about discipline and, how does it say? High discipline? High morale. Yeah. High discipline, high morale. All right, Uhuru, comrade.
Good. I just want to have a reminder that the next month meeting is going to be on an International African People's Socialist Party meeting is going to be on April 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's the USM convention.
That's the USM convention.
We will be sending an update of when the time for the APSP international meeting is. Within a week. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade.